I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, December the 16th, brought to you in part by Noromycin by Norbrook. Noromycin 300 LA is an economical 300 milligram oxytetracycline that delivers the same amount of antibiotic as the 200 milligram options in a lower dose. For more information, go to norbrook.com. The holiday break is looming. The commercial cattle business takes 2 breaks a year, one at 4th of July holiday and one at the Christmas New Year's break. A lot of your commercial feeder cattle auctions will take 2 weeks at Christmas. But this year, with Christmas actually falling on Sunday, it's kind of splitting things up a little bit. And you need to check your schedules to make sure that you know when your auction is going to have a sale or not. Oklahoma National Stockyards, the nation's feeder cattle market, they are going to have a sale this coming Monday. So they will have a sale on Monday and Tuesday this week. Then they will not have a sale after New Year's Day. So they always take 2 weeks off, but they are taking the back 2 weeks off. Joplin Regional Stockyards will have sales Monday and Wednesday this coming week, but then they will be closed the week between Christmas and New Year's, and then be back to work on January the 2nd. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, is going to be closed for the next 2 weeks. So their big sales are the big feeder sales are on Tuesday and Wednesday, and the cow sales on Monday, but they are going to be closed for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll start again with the cow sale on January the 2nd. But be sure and check your schedules there. There's been a lot of sales in the northern plains and some in the upper Midwest that have been closed due to weather for the last week or so. You'll have to check with them. They have really changed their schedules up, and then they've postponed their sales and then had to postpone them again or completely cancel them. Those cattle are going to be getting pretty stale if they're sitting around a stockyard, but at least they'll get fed and they'll be a little bit out of the weather. But going to be a lot of bred cow sales for the next 2 weeks. You have especially diversified producers that raise row crops and cattle too. Those row crop farmers, despite the high inputs, a lot of them had a pretty good year, and they've got reason to spend some money here late this year to get away from tax problems. Well, one way they like to do that is to buy replacement stock. So that's a good time to have bred cow sales. Those guys that are selling out, a lot of them would like to put that income off until next year. Well, they can sell them. The sale barns can defer payment and not pay you for those sales until after the new year, but of course they don't want to have them holding that money any longer than they have to. So at the end of the year, these last couple of weeks is a good time to have bred cow sales, and there'll be a lot of dispersals. We are going to have feeder flash reports up through the 22nd. We'll have a couple the week between Christmas and New Year's, and then start right back again after New Year's Day. But I'll try to tap into as many of those bred cow sales as I can to give you an idea on how they're going. We've seen a lot of very impressive bred heifer and young bred cows and sell, but it hasn't been nationwide. It's been a pretty good sale here and a pretty good sale there, but then some other places not much better than what they were selling back this summer. But I think as we start to get here at the end of the year, I think most of them will be pretty high, and I'll try to get as many of those to you as I can. Let's talk about your board on Thursday. December live cattle futures were down 45 cents, settling at 154.05. And we're all the way getting down here to the holidays, late December. 154.05. Last week's weighted average in your 5-area feeding region on finished cattle was 155.77. That's kind of like where CME likes to be, because it costs $1.50, $2 expenses to deliver cattle. So it's still carrying a pretty good basis for your hedged feeder, which keeps them interested. Yet it's not going to promote any deliveries because it's not cost prohibitive to do that. So that's not going to work. But This coming week's weighted average is going to be very close to last week's weighted average, as we're seeing pretty much steady money as the market did finally break loose on Thursday. But let's talk about February live cattle futures down 85 cents at 154.85. Your back months were down 7 cents to down 65. Feeder cattle contracts for January were down 55 cents at 183.05. March down 77 cents at 184.67. And the back months on feeder cattle down 17 cents to down 67. March corn Chicago Board of Trade contracts up 3 cents at 653.5. January soybeans down 8.75 cents at 14.73.5 cents a bushel. Fat cattle trade, we did see trade break loose on Thursday. We hadn't seen anything to speak of until Thursday, and it was like mid-morning before we saw anything. There were no bids. Nobody was calling around. Your packers were going to pretend like they didn't need any cattle because of the holiday interruptions, and didn't act like they were too excited about it. It was kind of like a girlfriend that won't call you back, or is dragging her feet responding to a text message. They just acted like they didn't want anything, but then all of a sudden they came in, and your market is going to be largely steady. Now, you can call it steady to weak, and I don't believe that your weighted average is going to quite reach the 155.77 of last week, but the price levels are there. There's just within those they're going to be a little bit smaller. But man, we're getting information out of Colorado. It's getting very active over there. A lot of competition. They sold 200 head direct basis fed cattle in Colorado. They sold at 248 dressed. 248 is pretty good. We hadn't seen that. So Iowa, 11,800 head confirmed on Thursday. Only 13,000 for the week, but there'll be more than that traded, because that was before the 2 o'clock turn-in deadline for LMR by your packers. So no telling what kind of trade we had in Iowa, but it was pretty active with live sales from 155 to 158. That's largely steady. Dress sales from 244 to 248. That 248 was not available last week, and it is this week. So might have a tick better weighted average on dress steers than last week, but I'm thinking your live steers are going to be just a little bit under last week. Nebraska, 19,300 head sold on Thursday. Only 200 more than that had sold all week long. Similar to Iowa, live sales 155 to 158, dress sales from 245 to 248. Kansas, 5,800 head on Thursday. That's all they've sold so far this week. 155 was the price in Kansas. That is largely steady, but there was some 156 late in Kansas, so that's going to be on the light side there. Did have some dress trade in northern Kansas from 245 to 248. Texas, about 3,000 head had sold, and that's all they've done so far this week was on Thursday. There'll be a few more than those. 155 to 155 and a half. The 155 and a half come through the Fed Cattle Exchange online auction on mid-morning there on Thursday, and they was able to get 155 and a half. It's amazing what a little competition will do. Let's talk about box beef cutout values. Choice cuts were up $4.23, about what they were down on Wednesday, with choice cuts settling at $254.30 on Thursday afternoon. Selects up $182 at $228.51. Slaughter 486,000. That's 22,000 less than last week. 4,000 more than the same week a year ago. You're seeing a lot of people saying, yeah, we knew that they were going to cut back on this slaughter because these cattle are getting high, and supposedly your packers' margins are very, very thin. Pretty much all of that drop-off that we saw this week compared to last week was in northern Colorado, and most all of that was due to weather closings, guys. I don't think they had any intentions to back off on the slaughter. They've got obligations to fill. They're still making money. The offal is bringing more profit than we've basically ever seen from them. So they're making that money back there. And don't believe those stories that they're close to red ink or in the red ink on those. And they're wanting to run those chain speeds wide open, but they were forced to close in Greeley and Fort Morgan on some this week. And that's why we're a little bit shy on our slaughter. It's not because they had intentions to do that. Actual slaughter information for the week ending December the 3rd had your average dressed steer carcass weighed at 925 pounds. Also, talk about what else is going on. We saw that Lubbock Stockyards, that's a market I've been to several times and grew up going to that market. Lubbock Stockyards has closed its doors after 54 years of business there, and it sits in a fairly popular area there. The town is kind of moving kind of in that direction, but they are closing that. That facility is going to be torn down, and it's going to be building commercial businesses and houses in that area right there. But we hate to see another sale barn go down. Seems like we see one go down about every month or so, but Lubbock Stockyards is no more. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV auction. Late in the day on Thursday, sitting at 178.41. That was down a dime compared to the end of Wednesday's trade there. I'm out here in Fallon, Nevada. Nevada Livestock Marketing is going to have 4,000 head on Friday. That's about 500 more than we were estimating earlier in the week. Cattle are showing up that hadn't called ahead. Going to be a lot of those hard mountain desert lightweight stalker type cattle. You guys from California and you guys even back in the Midwest and the Southern Plains, if you're interested in some of them, get on to dvauction.com. We'll be taking bids on there. You can view and bid right there. Talk about your big sales on Thursday. Winter Livestock in Pratt, Kansas had 5,000 head. Pretty impressive run for them this time of year, but people are scrambling right here before the holiday break. Feeder steers, everything was higher, and the calves were sharply higher. But feeder steers $4 to $6 higher, as called by Federal State Market News. Feeder heifers were not well tested. Steer calves $7 to $10 higher. Spots sharply higher. Heifer calves $4 to $6 higher. Pratt, Kansas was our Zoetis stick-out sale of the day. You look at this automated marker report through Cattle Market Central. You see the best tested weights, and there were several best tested weights as it was a well-tested market throughout. How about 581 head of 5-weight steer calves, average 547, the weighted average price of $212.13. Pretty impressive down in southern Kansas, guys. 605 head of 6-weight steers, average 653 with a weighted average price on all of them of $192.27. 637 head of the 7-weight steers, average 751 with a weighted average price of $184.05. And 529 head of the 8-weight steers, averaged 848, the weighted average price of $185.36, about $5 over your index levels. On the heifers, 459 head of your 5-weight heifer calves, average 543 with a weighted average price of $185.36. 458 head of the 6-weight heifer calves, average 628, weighted average price $178.45. Very impressive market there at Winter Livestock in Pratt, Kansas. Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas had a pretty good sale, 3,800 head. This is the last sale for them for the year. Steers $1 to $3 higher, heifers $1 to $3 lower, as called by the incompetent federal state market reporters there. So I don't know if you can trust that or not. But a stick-out sale at Farmers and Ranchers, and you can trust this, 58 steers weighed $8.99 at $178. Orland Livestock Commission Yard in Orland, California, DV Auction customer. You can watch them every week on DV Auction. 70 head, 602-pound steers bring $205.50 way out west. How about Billings Live? Billings Livestock Commission Company there in Billings, Montana sells 58 steers, weigh $951 at $174.50. And the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday this week And your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day come out of Columbus Sales Pavilion in Columbus, Nebraska. 127 steers weighed 798 and 186.50. That's your feeder flash for Friday.